Hello, and welcome to today's episode. And in this episode, we're talking about, Lisa.
We're going to continue exploring what we started talking about last week, which was what is holding us back from reaching the next level within our business. And last week we looked at the kind of external factors, and this week we're going to start looking at our internal world.
What we're going to explore is how what's going on inside of you is holding you back from reaching the next level in your business. And if you haven't already listened to the first episode, it's worth going back and listening to that either after or before this one, doesn't matter. But go back and listen to that one because they do come in two parts, because you can't have one without the other. So where I would start with this is kind of really taking it back and slowing it down and looking at the basics of our comfort zone. So for me, a comfort zone, and I'm going to draw this for you because I know you're listening to this. I'm going to draw this for you and you want you to imagine it as I'm drawing it. So imagine a circle on a white piece of paper with a stick man in the middle. All right, so you've got a stick man in the middle of a circle. That circle goes all the way around the outside of the stick man. Now, all of the space in between the stick man and the edge of the circle is our ego, it's our comfort zone, it's our conditioning, our familiar zone, our certainty. It's what we already know, it's who we learn to be, it's our experience of the world. And that's perfectly normal. You know, everyone has that kind of circle around them of the experience of their life and who they think they are. The thing is that for a lot of us, when we're setting goals, and especially as us coaches, we're good at setting goals. We love to set a goal, right? And what we tend to do is we set a goal that can feel edgy. And it doesn't matter if you're a coach or not, but we set goals that can feel edgy. They can feel like they're far away, which is great because there's something to aim for. However, what happens is that goal is on the outside of the circle. So you're in the circle and the goal is outside the circle. So it's outside what's familiar. It's outside what's comfortable. It's outside of what our understanding of ourself and life is. So it can feel like it's a distance away. And that's cool because it gives us something fun to aim for, right? Now, the problems can occur when we are trying to create that goal, because the minute we reach the edges of our comfort zone, things become uncomfortable. Things become unfamiliar. They can feel really challenging. See, for a lot of people, what we notice, and we see this in our school, and we're really hot on this, is to have people experience that discomfort, to have people feel that unfamiliarity and being on the edges and the outsides of their comfort zone and staying there, being really willing to stay there. Not in a way of forcing themselves and pushing really hard, but quite the opposite, like relaxing into it, being gentle with yourself, being forgiving with yourself. Because the truth is that the more capable, the more willing, I should say, the more willing we are to being uncomfortable, to feeling the discomfort, to feeling the uncertainty, the broader the possibility in our life becomes. The more opportunities available to us, the more likely we are to create our goal. And it might sound really basic, and often we hear the saying like feel fear into it anyway, which I think can sound quite callous. But for me, that's saying on a level of being really gentle and kind with yourself while you're feeling fear and being willing to keep going. Yeah, that is going to be the thing that has us create what we want to create.
Yeah, we want to create a different relationship with the fear, with all of that emotion that we're navigating. It's going to help us move outside of that comfort zone.
Yeah.
Can I add something, Sam, as well? Because it just came to my mind what was shared by our coach last night. And the difference between like knowing how to do something and really being willing and wanting to do something and really committed to going for it. And I think it's relevant here because, again, when we hit that resistance, suddenly how much we want something can feel different. And how the metaphor that she used was going on holiday. She was talking about, yeah, I want to go to Europe, right? I want to go to Europe, and that I want that. Like, that sounds fun. I want to go on holiday. But then when it comes to booking time out of your calendar, when it comes to paying the fee, when it comes to doing a COVID test, when it comes to all of the things that need to happen to then make Europe a reality, there's less desire, because now it seems harder or more complicated. And I think that's just really relevant to this example, because we bump into, you know, the emotions and the internal experience of what the COVID test, the equivalent of the COVID test, or the equivalent of taking time out of your calendar.
Yeah, totally.
Like, it's that fear and that embarrassment or that judgment or that risk of failure. That's what we're navigating.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Is that it's really where we get to test that interested, committed piece. You know, we can, and I hold my hand up. You know, there's been times, and I'm sure you'll agree, Lisa, although I don't know, maybe you won't. There's times where it's like, in my life, I've noticed when I've thought I'm really committed to something. I've set an intention to go and do it. And then when it's kind of like when the tires hit the gravel, it's like, let's go. It's like, oh, maybe not. Like, actually, that was a really good intention, but am I really committed to this? You know, that's where we get to choose. And we're going to talk a little bit, I think, a little bit more in a minute about ownership, but that's where we really get to choose. Like, yeah, I'm deciding this is happening. Cool.
Yeah. Shall I share? I want to read something, actually. So Sam's got the drawings and I've got the book. So I'm just going to read the book that I'm reading from. Is called A Happy Pocket Full of Money, Infinite Wealth and Abundance in the Here and Now. And I just turned the page earlier today, and this is the bit that popped up, and it says, abundance is not created because of certain conditions. Certain conditions are created because of abundance. Conditionality does not exist. The following statement is wrong. A person is poor because of certain conditions around him or her. The following statement is correct. Conditions of poverty are around a person because that person's self and thoughts are of poverty consciousness. The state or beingness creates the conditions. Most people think it is the other way around. Those who see it clearly find their conditions magically transforming themselves to give them lucky breaks and coincidences. So I know you have thoughts on that, Sam. Do you want to share what came to mind for you? Because I was talking about this might need some, well, you actually said this might need some agreements around it. Like, we might need to kind of say something about context with this, because certainly when I was reading it, I'm understanding it and I'm open to it. And I'm at a level now where I can really see what's being said here. And there's still this part of me that's resistant to that, right? That's like, yeah, but if you are born into a deprived area, and a lower income family, like, it feels harder. It feels harder to get out of that. So do you want to share a little bit about what your thoughts were on that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think that the first thing comes to mind is that when we talk about harder and easier, like, that's not, for me, what you've just read isn't pointing to. What it's pointing to is the equality of choice, the equality of the opportunities. So, like, an example is, you know, what's been true for us is true up until now. And I'm talking about the internal world, right? So what's true is true up until now. But in this moment, that hasn't yet, then this next moment that hasn't yet been blemished by all the beliefs that I hold about myself, is free. I can choose differently now. And that I can choose to do something different. And that, for me, is where the equality is. You know, I totally get it, because when I read that, it feels like it might be challenging to hear. I can feel that, because it's like, well, wait a minute, some people are born seemingly with a silver spoon in their mouth while others aren't. But that for me we're not talking about that. We're talking about the equality in choice from now. And yeah, everyone's results are going to look different, and everyone's experience of that is going to look different. But your choice is the same. And I think, and I remember Steve, last time we spent a day with Steve Chandler, he was coaching somebody on something similar. And I remember this coach bringing something to the table, like, I've lost my purpose and the excitement in my practice. I've lost that kind of buzz and that excitement. And she said, it's just not bringing me that joy anymore. And he said, wow, you sounds like you got it the wrong way around. Like, you don't get joy, you don't get purpose from your work, you bring joy and purpose to your work. And that distinction is wrapped up in what you were just talking about there. So what you're reading, that distinction of choice, like, I bring this, not this brings me. And there's just something in that. And the last thing I would say is that there's a bit around ownership. And one of the habits for me, of the most highly successful clients, and I look at the people in our school, the achievers in our school, it's like they're willing to take complete ownership of themselves in their circumstance and their feelings and their emotions, and navigate their way with it, not without it.
Yeah.
Like, total ownership.
It really, I mean, we do a lot of work on how we see ourselves. Like that can be a really great piece of work to do with anybody that you're coaching. Going right, like dialing it right back to, how is it that you see yourself in this world? And we work with a lot of people on this, but one person that comes to mind in particular, very much in the early stages of our conversations, saw themselves, and they might not have used this language, but they saw themselves as someone who was trapped. So any offering, any suggestion, any exploration of a different way was shut down. There was real resistance because this person saw themselves as financially dependent on somebody else, not able to create their own wealth. So therefore, they were tied to this person. And therefore, because of that, their life looked a certain way. Like, they had to be the one responsible for this, this, and this. And it very much looked like they were seeing themselves through this lens of, you know, that's for everybody else. This is my life. And really starting to slow down. And we did a lot of appreciation and acknowledgement work to start to have that person see something else as possible. But it started with looking at how they view themselves. So there was a lot of work around acknowledgement and self-love and self-worth. And what we're seeing now is that is starting to shift, and you can see it outwardly. There's tangible things being put into place, from seeing themselves in a different light, seeing themselves as someone who can create a life for themselves, can create boundaries, can create wealth. They're starting to say no to things that otherwise would have taken their time and energy. And because they're saying no to that, they have that time and energy to put into their business. So it's just, that's how important this work is. It really does start with, like, how are we seeing ourselves and questioning that? Is that true? Does that feel like, do those thoughts, does that way of looking at yourself lift and inspire you? Does that fill you with possibility for the future? Is that how you want to live your life?
Yeah, I love that level of conversation with yourself, which opens up so much possibility. When we start seeing that the worst thing that can happen to me is this thinking, this feeling, it's like, cool. Then what else is possible? Yeah.
As coaches, Sam, like that's where a lot of our work is with our clients.
Yeah.
On unraveling that and whatever fears lie underneath that. And that takes us back to that circle diagram that you were talking about. That's the space that we're playing in.
Yeah. Perfect. And that's, just to finish up, that for me is like the perfect representation of whatever's going on inside of me is going to create what's going on outside of me. And, you know, we've seen that in our school, somebody who's gone from they're earning an X amount of money, doing the inner work, and all of a sudden what they're earning has gone up greatly for that reason. Because what's inside of them is more free, it's more loose, they're more able to do the things that was holding them back from doing before. They're more willing, more committed. Yeah, great. I mean, I've got nothing else to add on this episode.
Cool conversation. So let's leave it there, and we'll see you next time.
We will.